You obviously know my name. It's Graham Latergan. I see you've all got your names nicely in the box there. Please let me know if you would like me to omit those names if we submit recordings to other people in regard to the POPI and Privacy Act, and I'm happy to oblige you. And on that note, guys, yes, so I've been around for about 30 odd years in management, started at the lowest levels that you can possibly think of, primarily in public service, in government departments, and primarily from a law enforcement kind of background. So management in that sphere is very, very, very difficult. And this is why my team and I decided that in pursuit of management and leadership development programs, we're going to kind of start looking at some of the plaguing little issues that touch managers today, predominantly coming out of COVID, which people are still talking about. Funny enough, in industry, I was actually on the line this morning with a company that still have these issues of post-pandemic management issues that they are dealing with, hence the reason they've asked us to record the session for them. And from a law enforcement kind of background, you manage completely differently to what you would do, let's say, in the corporate sector. And what I'm going to kind of share with you today is just touch points based on my experience as a manager and the fact that I was one of the culprits. I was a big culprit in managing or fear management or fear leadership, because you're coming from a rank-based organization where you have a lot of power and a lot of authority, and you tend to use that authority in your rank structure and this obnoxious kind of, I don't want to use the term arrogant, but this obnoxious, very overbearing, forceful mindset or management mindset to get your point or to get the work across or to get the job done. And inherently in the industries that I'm operating, people would automatically fear you because of this perception. And as I then progressed out of that sector and got into more the corporate sector and into higher executive management and senior executive management, I realized that I had become kind of the person that I did not want to be managed by. So that took a lot of self-reflection. And even through those years, I've got it wrong and I've made a lot of mistakes. So we're just going to touch on a few things, and I want us to have a discussion. Let's kind of spread this out. It's not just a teaching issue. A lot of what you're going to see here today, you could Google this. I mean, it's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination under any circumstances. So we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to take you through two dimensions, one being the fear manager and some science and some theory that's out there. It's not going to be long. We're going to be about half an hour, 40 minutes or so, then you're done. And then I'm going to take you into you being a manager and actually why you fear managing people per se. And we're going to look at some tips and some, can I call it, traits and tricks that you can possibly use in terms of your management career. Now, most of us sitting here are really now almost one-man band shows, if I can call it that. And I don't mean to be sexist, but we've come from large corporate organizations and public service organizations, and we're kind of working for ourselves. But sometimes it can still be a very daunting task. So I want you to answer the question: have you ever been in a situation where you feared being a manager and or a leader, where you've gone into this organization, or you've been in the organization, or you are in this organization, or exposed to this, where you really and truly, you sort of in over your head? We'll start with you, Kensani. Hit that question for us.
Yes, I had a lot of fear looking into the caliber of people that I need to lead.
Yes.
And when I entered the corporate space,
Yes.
I found that most of them are way older than me. And my fear was, will they submit to my leadership or what? Then, yes, those were the things that I need to overcome. It wasn't easy. However, I think with being kind and humble and being mindful, it helped me a lot.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what training do you have as management? Because you teach this now. So what training do you have to do, in terms of your skills set? And you don't have to disclose your qualifications, but I'm just saying, what kind of training have you been exposed to?
Myself.
Yeah, yourself.
I did a lot of leadership development, and for my skills and development, personal development as a manager, a trainer, I did coaching psychology.
I'm glad about that.
Yes, I did coaching psychology, and I also found myself a mentor who will coach me in leadership, in how to lead people. Yes.
Fantastic. All right. And Jackie, let's go to you. Is Jackie there? I think I've lost on the sound. And Gisela, or Jackie's there? That's one.
Yes. Experience.
Okay. It sounds
I did experience a bit of logistics industry.
Okay.
So coming from a sales background, I think I definitely had fears about the expectations that were put on me to actually manage.
Yes.
Sales. I experienced those.
Yes, I recall having this conversation with you. It's not an easy process to find yourself in, especially when you stuck by yourself. Very, very difficult. Awesome. And thanks for sharing that with us. And Gisela, you've been around in many companies.
I think one of the most difficult things from a management perspective coming out of this COVID, let me start there, was I feel that people had generally become a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
And what we were used to, I mean, I'm speaking old school companies, when you wake up and you've got responsibility and you take accountability as a person, and you know that when your manager, requests something of you, that it gets done. Whereas
Yes,
I found that I find that has changed quite a bit. Where assertiveness is a lot of the times misconstrued as aggressiveness. These are one of the challenges I had in my management position. So much so that I did over 40 courses in a 12-month period.
Wow.
To teach myself how to not come across as aggressive, which at the end of the day, it came off as it wasn't aggressive, it was just being assertive. So I think one of the challenges and fear comes in, the HR.
Yes, HR.
If you have a normal request of somebody, they misconstrue that as something else. It really is a scary thing. And people are a lot more sensitive. So if you ask them, one word can change a whole conversation.
100%.
Could you please do this for me quickly? I can't believe she told me to do it quickly. People get offended so quickly.
All the quickness in there, very quickly.
That's my experience. Is I find that after COVID, it's murky waters to navigate as a manager.
Yes.
And it's a lot more difficult.
I'm with you. 100%. Yeah, no, that's crazy. Okay, fantastic, guys. So we kind of on the same boat here. I thought it would be pretty interesting. Please excuse all my spelling in the chat box over there. Okay, I just run back when I throw some ideas out. When you throwing them out, I just type them back in there. We can just kind of go back to them and discuss them and see how we can interact with those. But I thought it pretty interesting to actually discuss the concept or the construct of leadership phobia as a science. Is it actually researched? Now, I'm on a PhD journey at the moment, and this is why I'm actually doing these little sessions, is because I want to get the touch of the market. When people start entering Khensani, I'm thinking, with you now, that's and specifically Gisela, that's done like 12 courses or 13 courses or whatever sorry, how many courses did you do? 40 courses in 12 months.
40, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. So our idea is that we want to kind of study this skill. We want to kind of understand it. And on this journey that I'm on, what has been posed to me by academics is that if you want to change management theories and management styles of people, you need to understand what it is, or they need to understand what it is that they're getting themselves into, and what are their inherent worries or concerns or fears, for that matter. All three of them mean the same thing. But at a point of departure, we need to understand why people manage and why they actually lead, because it's one of the most talked about subjects in the world. I don't know if you knew that, Kinsani. It's one of the most researched subjects is management and leadership. So I'm kind of in murky waters, as Gisela has said, you know. So I said, let's look at some science. What is the phobia of leadership? It's actually FOL, fear of leadership. It's an unexamined phenomena in today's working life. And it's true what Gisela is saying. If you've come out of a pandemic like we have, where the world basically went into reset mode, okay, I wish it would have reset a little bit more. I wish things would have changed even more drastically, notwithstanding the fact that we've gone through major issues personally, professionally, spiritually, and then, of course, socially, and how that's kind of changed our lives. But the point I'm trying to get at is it's an unexamined phenomenon. Going into the pandemic, we started to work remotely and work more hybridly and more independently, and we found ourselves in a complete different swimming pool, or shall I say fish pond, or a lake for that matter. We were swimming in the deep end on the basis of the fact that we had to change immediately, and that doesn't always sit well with people. And when we look at FOL, it's basically a defined term, but it's still under research. So there's actually very little science out there that talks about the phobia, the scare, the worry of leadership. And it talks to the fears that people have and the hesitations that they harbor about the negative consequences, or the connotations, as I would put it, of accepting leadership roles and responsibilities. So here's what happens in business. For the majority of organizations that exist out there, there's obviously a hierarchical structure, which is very traditional in its management profile. And these organizations exist where you have top management, and then you obviously have middle management, and so forth. You go down and down and down. And invariably what we find in a lot of companies, and this is where research is going at the moment, is that people are then put on to, can I call it unwanted or unrequested team leadership roles for project management, little systems or things that have to change inside the organization. And all of a sudden, one day you find yourself working autonomously, you in your own kind of space in the organization, and then all of a sudden you're a team leader and there's 6 or 7 people that you've got to supervise. And we make the greatest mistakes in our management career right at the bottom as a supervisor. That's where I went wrong. Back in the day, if we can call it that, we were promoted based on your own perception of your performance. So you would write your own reports. I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I've done this, and I've accomplished that. And they would say to you, oh, well done. Now you're a sergeant, or you're a colonel, whatever the case may be. So you were never promoted on your actual, as Gisela was talking about, your actual emotional intelligence, the actual skills that you could portray, the competencies. It was just done on merit and good work. So you came with baggage, and you made a lot of mistakes. And the higher you went, you developed particular characteristics and traits and personality, can I call it windows or mirrors, that made you into the person that you are today. And unless you got guidance, Kinsani, unless you got guidance and mentoring along the way, you kind of might have turned out good or bad. It just depends on where you were. And that's kind of where my research is going in terms of this phobia of leadership. But let's look at it a little bit more detail. And please, if you want to interrupt, do so with the greatest of pleasure. The fear of leadership comes from the term ergophobia. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about that. Yes, Giselle, you're 100% right. Ergophobia, the fear of actually working. There is such a thing. And there's a lot of information on the slides. I'm only going to touch on a few of these points. But I must be honest, until I started my research journey into management and leadership, I did not know that people were scared of working. I knew that they didn't want to work, and I knew that people, on a Sunday was, oh, God, the week is coming, and I don't feel like going to work, or, and it's like we are born to work, and then we die, or we go into retirement, and then we wait to die, and you wonder what it is that you've achieved. Yeah, no, that's a fact. So ergophobia is basically irrational, extreme. It's a debilitating, it's a real thing. It's actually researched science of fear of working. And that's exactly right, Jackie. Until I started this actual deep studies into management, I did not know that it existed, and it explained a lot to me why people reacted the way they did at workspaces. And then we tried to remedy this through employee wellness programs and assistance programs, and performance management was brought into the whole context of things to try and correct people's behavior. But little did we know that there's this one tug in people's demeanor and their aura and kind of their space, their minds, that they're actually scared of working. And this happened a lot during the pandemic period, where people were thrust into a different work context, the workspace, where they had to now work remotely for that matter. And the fear that set in was phenomenal. So before we look at your fear as a manager, let's look at the fears that we impart onto people. So you have to be diagnosed. It's actually a psychological process and a medical process for that matter, where you've actually got to be diagnosed and you've got to be observed over a period of months. It's like you do all sorts of tests. I sincerely didn't know this, and I've really learned something over here, and I'm glad to be imparting this on you. And it's like something that starts with other stress disorders that go or accompany this on your life journey. You could be going through medical issues like anxiety, other phobias, for instance, other setbacks, which explains a lot about the pandemic and a lot of disruption in your lives. The suicide rate for people actually increased during the pandemic period because they had to work differently. And although a lot of people said, oh, I'm going to work at home, it's going to be fantastic, nice, I'm on a computer. A lot of people weren't geared for that because they liked going to work, but they weren't necessarily, can I say, connected or engaged at the workplace, but it was that escape mechanism. A lot of people are very stressed in normal, common working situations. So, and they could be good performers for that matter, but they're going through a lot of issues in their life. And just being there kind of, relates to stressful situations, which could affect them and sort of have situations in their mind where they sort of seeing life a lot differently, experiencing a lot of issues. The environment is very different. And a lot of people also go to work to escape home, their personal lives. It's another thing that I've been exploring quite a lot. So this ergophobia phenomena is a real thing when it comes to particular people. And this is one of the things that HR managers and CEOs and COOs are not recognizing in the workplace. Sometimes we bring people into the workspace because, well, they have to survive. They've got to earn money. They have to live. They've got a set of skills. They've kind of come out of universities. They've got so many skills. They've got so much experience. But work is just a place that they have to be, and they sometimes can't function. And I recall back the time when I was working in large organizations, I suddenly had to work from home, and I suddenly had to work for myself, and I had no business experience. I had business management experience, but no self-entrepreneurial skills. It was a daunting task. And this is where I reminisce, if I have to say it that way, that ergophobia actually plagued me once or twice in my own life, for that matter, but I did not know about it. So we need to understand that there's a lot of contributing factors that affect people inside organizations when they are working. And if we manage by fear, if I had a manager looking like this, it would scare the living daylights out of me. I thought I'd put that picture in just to illustrate that. I would not want to go to work if somebody looked like this or looked at me like this every morning. So we have to also understand that there's a lot of people that actually go to work, millions of them for that matter, that go to work, and they fear work more than they actually fear the people inside the work. And sometimes we have managers inside the workspace that actually capitalize on that fear for a lot of reasons. So let's quickly just have a look at a few points, guys. This is you can as I've said, you can Google a lot of this. This is just a few pointers. There's literally millions of them, and then they start delving into the psychological aspects and the medical connotations, etc. But I want to kind of show you what causes fear of work. Over and above you having natural disorders, or shall I say medical disorders or psychological disorders, that have culminated over a set period of time based on your experience and your environment inside your own personal space. So we can have a look at some of these abusive managers. We would think that in today's time, we don't have abusive managers. We would think that we've gone past this now, but the world is still plagued by very abusive, aggressive, obnoxious, arrogant managers in organizations. And I recall being just one like this, almost abusive to my people in such a way that I would say to them, listen, if you don't like it here, you can leave, I can replace you. That was kind of the language that we used. But you could get away with it in many times because people said, oh, that's just Graham's character, that's his style. And it was, and for a long time, I relished in that. You know what I mean? And I felt that, you know, and now they respect me. But it wasn't actually respect, it was fear. Lack of emotional intelligence. I did not understand the concept of emotional intelligence. And Kensani, you teach emotional intelligence like I do. You know, we'll know that this is one of the greatest traits that leaders can possess in today's, can I call it, organizational cultures and organizational companies for that matter. But if you don't have it and you lack it, you are going to manage your staff very, very poorly. And then, of course, toxic work environments. Now, I want you to separate the two concepts, emotional intelligence to toxic work environments, as well as septic cultures. We talk a lot about toxic work environments as managers and leaders. We spend a lot of time in this space where we say that your environment is really bad. There's lots of conflict happening in the organization. There's lots of gossiping, lots of backbiting. In Afrikaans, we call it skinder, you know, and it can be extremely toxic. It can be very, very, very dangerous for an organization to have this kind of a culture. It's a septic culture inside the organization. But my departure point of septic culture is when we are not managing our values. We are not aligned to our vision and our mission. People just do what they want. We don't have diversity. We don't have inclusivity. We don't deal with different cultures, different belief systems, sexual orientations. And the world is waking up to this. And again, based on this research that I'm busy doing, I'm still lost as to why in 2023 we're still having problems with this particular point, like bad culture and poor working environments. And of course, negative, frightening events in the workplace. People are sometimes exposed to traumatic events inside the workspace. For instance, and I put this one in because I used to work in an environment like traffic policing, and we used to work on accident scenes and shooting scenes and all of these kinds of things that were extremely traumatic. But there was no such thing as employee assistance and help and psychological. You came to work the next day, and that was that. But sometimes our internal staff are scary. The people we work with are dangerous. They are toxic. and they can also manifest in frightening ways that make us kind of want to avoid the workplace. And of course, a thing that's still discussed today is bullying, workplace violence. There's a lot of that. We can look at recent news events where there's a lot of bullying still in schools, teachers bullying children, children bullying teachers, workplace violence, frustration that sets in. There's still a lot of that. And as society and as the, can I call it, the pressures of clamped work environments, can I call it restructured workspaces, decentralization, all these things that take place, changes in companies, we start to experience people become a lot more frustrated. They become a lot more angry. We've heard of the term road rage for a long time. Nobody ever studied that phenomena. Today, it's something that we look at very, very seriously. And there's a whole bunch of things that lead to road rage, not just the taxi pulling off in front of you kind of things. Yes, and Jackie says Kimshani says that a toxic environment is caused by lack of EQ in leadership. 100%. That's exactly where it is. I'm appalled at the fact that leaders still expect people to adapt to them. We should not be managing that way, but more of that in a little bit in the next few minutes as we go forward. So there's a lot of information on this slide, and I would normally do it in like an animation format, but I've got it here for you, and I'm happy to give this to you as well, Kinsani, Gisela, and Jackie. So you've got it in your bank, and you can have the slide show. There's nothing here that is intellectual property. But let's have a look at the concept of fear. Some of you were talking about fear this morning. And let's look at what it actually does, medically, psychologically for that matter, and scientifically. Cognitive ability. This is your ability to actually reason, to make logical conclusions, or have good decision-making traits as acting like a normal person, for instance. Now, when you have fear, you struggle with that concept because you can't think clearly. And if your mind is clouded by fear, especially at work, you lack the ability to reason calmly and normally. And especially in an office environment, we will struggle with innovation and we will struggle with creativity. And today, according to the Gallup Institute, surveys have been done and research has been done that companies that lack innovation and creativity in their staff, where it is stifled, are companies that are no longer competitive and will eventually become obsolete. That's amazing research. And a thing that we haven't considered is resentment and revenge. Now, if you think that that's not a factor, just take mass shootings at work, shootings in schools, aggressive behavior at the workplace. So I train a lot of companies, well, particularly in the public sector. One of my clients is a large municipality, and they say to me that they fear to take action against employees that have been found guilty, or shall I say, have committed misconduct in the workplace. They could have stolen something, being very dishonest, and if they want to take action against them, they're scared that these employees are going to come and rob them and kill them in the middle of the night. That's amazing. And these people are managers. They're leaders, some of them executives. And that worries me because it tells me that the subordinate staff, the lower levels of staff in the greater part of, or the greater majority of companies, specifically in the South African context, are ruling the roost. So therefore, I asked them, why are you then a manager? You should not be a manager. And a lot of managers, on the flip side of that coin, have their own insecurities. They struggle kind of with their own shortcomings. They are insecure. We often say this, but it's a real thing. And it manifests as well when these particular managers, acting a bully, manipulative way, they use their authority to kind of push the processes or the policies or the work functions home, and they do that through what we call fear mongering. So we must be very careful of these kinds of managers and then these kinds of staff. Those two combined is where the toxicity comes in a company. Those two have to kind of be present for you to be able to identify that you're working in a very toxic culture. I've worked in organizations like that. And in fact, I've been a contributor to this, much to my disgrace and disgust. Fight or flight, it's a thing that we're teaching a lot now in emotional intelligence. It's how people will attend to, or shall I say, react to triggers. Yeah, I agree, Jackie. There's no creativity where there's fear of any kind, 100%. So we've got to be aware of the triggers inside our organizations. Now, managers that manage by fear cannot see triggers. They are blind to that. But they are, and at the same time, they don't understand why people react the way they do. Now, those reactions are the triggers that people experience when something gets said to them or done to them or delegated to them, or, you know, when they're given a task or whatever the case may be. And what happens is these people make mistakes. And a lot of these managers look for mistakes in order to bully, harass, and kind of pick on particular employees. It's a real thing. It still happens in companies. I have a lot of people as a counselor coming to me saying to me, yeah, I'm going through this at the workplace. I'm experiencing that. And 95% of the time, it's as a result of managers bullying and harassing their staff in the workplace. It disengages your team. You can see here, according to a Harvard review, so the stuff I'm giving you is not kind of coming from the middle of my brain. We're doing quite a bit of research that when people are disengaged, they are unproductive. They just don't work, or they won't function inside an organization. So we know now that highly engaged organizations, Kinsani, you and I teach this in companies and leadership, where if the people inside the organization are not engaged, you'll have low turnover, you'll have higher absenteeism, and you'll have high probability of incidents taking place in the workplace, which then affects your health and safety processes inside your business, and then affects your staff turnover. So this is a phenomenal slide. A lot of information on here in terms of what we are looking at in terms of fear. So let us look at it on the other end now, if there's no questions. Let us look at it on the other end. Again, there's just a bunch of things that I've put on here that is coming out of the research that I'm busy with. And it'll be good to get your feedback on this as well. Why do we then fear managing people? So we're going to spend a bit of time on this. We're nearly done, but we're going to spend a bit of time on this. Personal conflicts. So, Kinsani, I don't know if you do this. Gisela, if you as a supervisor did this. I know Jackie comes from large organizations that were very target driven. And if we consider the fact that, yes, we were managed and we were managers, we didn't think about fear at the time. It was just something that happened to be inside our suitcase and something we never opened. But for the best part, most people that are that fear managing other people have personal conflicts. You'll find that on any given Sunday. They're going through struggles at home. They could be going through relationship issues, grief, a lot of internal relationship problems, problems with kids, siblings. It really and truly contributes to your ability to manage people. And the reason why it does is because I always say this, and you can take this to the bank. If you don't know how to manage yourself, you can't manage other people. If you don't know how to lead yourself, you can't lead other people. And if you are going through a bunch of struggles, emotional issues, a lot of psychological and psychiatric issues, very deep emotional disturbances in your personal life, things that you might not have dealt with, these will affect the way you will manage and the way you will want to be managed, because they could manifest when you are being managed by a person with a strong character, maybe a bit too loud, maybe a little intrusive, etc., etc., etc. The other point is self-management. It's one of the greatest things that we teach in emotional intelligence. If you can't manage yourself, you can't manage other people. So because we struggle to manage our own lives, to be able to manage our own space, our professional lives, our personal, spiritual, and social lives, those that are in those four dimensions, if any one of them is imbalanced, you'll struggle with, or out of balance, you'll struggle with self-management. And again, of course, self-motivation. I often ask this question in my classes and my teachings and kind of the events that I speak at. What motivates you? And 95, again, I always use this term, but 95% of people will say, oh, my kids, or oh, you know, this, irrelevant, not that they're relevant, but things that are not really motivators. It's just comfort zones. So being in a comfort zone is not a motivator. It is the energy that you put into things to get things done for yourself, for your own personal goals and achievement. And a lot of people fear managing people because they don't know how to motivate themselves, because they're scared of public humiliation. You know, their personality is not strong enough. They rather shut their mouths. They're rather withdrawn. They call themselves introverts, and they relish in that fact. And I will say this to you, that science again shows that introverts, especially in women, make the best CEOs. So because you're an introvert, don't let that be a negative view or a negative mindset. Let that be a positive mindset, because introverts make the best managers and leaders in companies. Struggle to communicate, self-preservation. If you cannot communicate with people, or in fact, if you cannot communicate with yourself, you cannot communicate with people. So it all begins with the self. We fear managing people because we don't know how to communicate with ourselves. In other words, what your thoughts are, what you're speaking to yourself inside your mind. I know this sounds a bit out of there, but it's a fact. You know, how you treat yourself, how you see yourself in terms of, and how you critique yourself. Those are factors that affect the way you communicate with other people. I love this cliche statement. Everyone says, don't be so negative. You've got to be more positive. It's easier said than done, because we're living in a very negative world. If you're on social media, you'll know. If you're on in groups and you're perhaps in some social circles, there's always something that's negative there. It manifests, it kind of grows. It's part of the DNA that we live with in the world. It's the virus it's one of the necessary evils. But it requires mindset. And if for many of the things that I teach in management, mindset for me is probably one of the greatest things. Again, easier said than done. Most of us, the four of us, we struggle with mindset. We're not professionals. We don't always get it right. We have freak out moments. But it's that fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of confrontation. That is the mindset that we've got to actually change. Get those three right, or get those three balanced, or at least positively changed, and you'll see the way you manage yourself and people will change considerably. Be a massive change. This is a nice one, risk appetite. I don't know if you know what this means, but risk appetite, we teach in risk management. I mean, it's not again, not rocket science, but risk appetite is how much risk do you think you can actually take? A lot of people fear, besides failure, they fear that the risk is too great and it will impact upon their entire existence. So they just don't take risks. And just now I'll teach you about fixed and growth mindset. So that risk appetite is how much risk am I willing to take? For instance, out of the four of you here, who of you have gone bungee jumping? Anybody? You can just put your hand up. Okay.
No, I've been my life.
Just put your hand up. Bungee jumping. Okay, guys, I'm not trying to be smart here, but I have never been bungee jumping because I'm scared of flying first and foremost, and I'm scared of heights. So there's so many other contributing fears, but it looks such a rush. I would love to do it, but you can put me in a shark cage. I'm happy to go diving with sharks, but will I get out of the water to swim with the sharks? That's called risk appetite. I'm happy to go dive with sharks in a cage. So that's the risk I'm willing to take. That's my appetite level. I'm not prepared to get out of the cage and go and dive with the sharks without the cage or the protection. So it's comfort zones. So all of us, the four of us sitting here, we've all got a level of risk appetite. What are we willing to risk in life that will make us vulnerable and kind of more out there? Put us in a place where people can have eyes on us and the buck stops with us. So that's a reason why a lot of people fear managing people. High expectations. Now, this is kind of the flip side of the coin. We set too many high, or not too many, but too high expectations on ourselves. We want to be perfect. We want to do it right all the time. We never want to make a mistake. We feel that if we are the odd ball out, no pun intended with my red golf ball down the bottom, we feel if we're the odd ball out, kind of, there's too much attention on you, and that becomes pressure, and that becomes anxiety, and that becomes stress. And a lot of people that expect too much from themselves make very poor managers and leaders. A brilliant manager and a brilliant leader has to always be vulnerable. Has to always say, guys, I've made a mistake, or I apologize, or something is not right here, or I should have listened to you, or these are the kind of language. Gisela was talking about language earlier, and what we say nowadays to people, how sensitive they are. So that's a fact. It's 100% right. Employees are more competent. I put this one last. Most people that get employed, I'm not saying employed, but most people that enter management positions invariably will be managing people that are sometimes more competent than what they are, have different sets of skills, have more technical ability than them, are different generations, and this could really skyrocket your fear of managing them. I remember many years ago, I was relegated to Queenstown, and I had to go and manage a district for the Eastern Cape province of I think at the time it was Department of Roads and Transport. And in roads and transport, invariably you have engineers and you have architects and mechanical specialists, etc. And I don't have those qualifications. I mean, I had a business management degree, whoopee, So I was put in charge of all these people, and I had no clue of what they were talking about 90% of the time. In fact, 100% of the time. If they used technical terms, etc., I did not know what I was doing. But at the end of the day, I used my inherent management and leadership skills that I'd started to kind of change and adapt and reinvent, reimagineer to manage these people. And I approached the situation a lot more differently. And I can tell you now, from that series in my life, my management skills and leadership skills were amplified to a different realm completely in terms of my skill set. And I began to make better decisions and get better leadership, can I call it, response from people. In other words, I would get a lot more, I don't want to use the term authority, but I would get a lot more positive response from people. People were a lot more tuned in. That's the term I was looking for. So, and I let these people manage their expertise, and I provided support structures, because that's what managers and leaders are supposed to be doing. And when I did not know what they were doing, I'd ask them, say, teach me something here. Help me out with this. That's amazing. I didn't know that. How did you? Wow, that's fantastic. So it sounds like you are patronizing, but I promise you, it'll go take you to the ends of the earth with people if you acknowledge that you're not always on the same level as they are, even though you are their boss or their manager. So a lot of people apply for management jobs. And this is what I'm finding a lot. Part of my research is dealing with this particular aspect. People apply for jobs for one thing and one thing only. That's money. But they don't read the fine print. So when they get in there, they're managing different generations, different races, different beliefs, religious beliefs, sexual orientations, different thinking completely. And that starts to clash. And we expect people are going to adapt to us as managers. We should be adapting to them. So that's kind of a nice slide. I hope you enjoyed that one. I'm coming for a landing shortly. I want to leave you with this thought of where you've got to start as a manager. This slide does not belong to me. It belongs to Start with the Why, Simon Sinek. I follow him religiously. And the reason for that is because this guy talks about management leadership on another planet, in a different kind of, a different time and space, so to speak. But at the end of the day, most people fear management because they don't know why they are doing what they are doing. They know what to do, they know how to do it, but they don't know why they have to manage. And this is very important. And the way you're going to manage better is by getting people to kind of buy into what your thought process is. They don't buy into what you do, they buy why you do it. And this is a trick that I learned some 18 years ago, 15, 16 years ago, when I was kind of in the Northwest Province at the Department of Community Safety. I started to manage by way of saying, if I gave Jackie a task, I would say to Jackie, this is what needs to be done, this is where it's got to be done, and this is how you're going to do it. But more importantly, I told Jackie why she's doing what she's doing. The minute I did that, she had buy-in. She could kind of make decisions. And I left the door open and said, listen, if you're uncomfortable with that or something's not sitting right with you, deal with me, speak to me. You can come back to me with the greatest of pleasure. So another trick that you've got to learn is the art of diffusion and innovation, or diffusion of innovation. This is where you are in that bell curve, where you are starting to kind of manage in such a way that you have low expectations of people, and you might have high expectations of yourself, but you meet the concept both halfway, and through simplicity. So as long as people know that you are there, and that's why you're there, you'll manage a lot better. So go and have a look at Simon Sinek's videos. He'll give you some great insights into why we lead. And he begins with the concept of trust, which is very important. Right. This is what happens when nobody tells us what we are supposed to do. I remember when I became a manager for the first time, nobody told me anything. In fact, I had no qualifications. I had no experience. I had nothing. I just knew that I was managing myself effectively. So here's what I'm looking at. No one tells you. Earning the opportunity to be a manager is a career milestone. Maybe you guys are in a position right now that you might want to eventually, change your focus and your career styles, but you need to know what you're getting yourself into. For the best part, most managers don't know what they're getting themselves into. I've taught thousands of people on this subject. They just get thrust into the position, they get put onto this particular job, or they apply for it because they need the money, but they really and truly don't know anything how to deal with this. So this is a great thing. Yes, Kanchani, not a problem. I'm going to keep it recording and I'll send it off to you. We're nearly done, so don't worry about that. Okay, good. And this is where I want to kind of end. In fact, I don't want to end here, but I'll just end off the last two slides. These are some things that you must never say to your people as a manager. You can read them for yourself. Do what I tell you to. I'm the boss, You're lucky to have this job. Nice job today. I'm excited to announce that I did this. So a lot of reasons why managers fail is because of the language that they use. Language that they use. So you need to change your language with regards to your people, and you'll see a major change in their particular concept. All right. Cool beans. Are there any questions at this moment? Jackie, we've lost Gisela. Kinsani, we've lost Gisela. Oh, no, there she's trying to come back in. I think she's having a connection problem, but don't worry. We've got it all sorted for her. Okay. We're going to end off on this slide, and then I'm going to kind of give the floor to you if you want to have a discussion on anything. That's great. Managers need to have a growth mindset. And that means you've got to go from your comfort zone into the fear zone, into the growth zone. Look at the fixed mindset. If that is what you're telling yourself, then that is where you are. That's your comfort zone. If you are limiting your own abilities, if you don't like to be challenged, etc., if you're frustrated, you give up too easily, if you only do what you know, then your mindset is fixed. You'll never grow. So while you're applying for a management job is what I often tell people. You know, we can't apply for management posts or management positions if our mindset is fixed. You have to be in the growth mindset where you can say, I'm welcoming challenges. I don't fear opportunities. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I welcome feedback. These are the ways that managers are now leading in the context of a growth mindset. I think it's a fantastic slide. What do you guys think? Cool beans. All right. So, yes, and then on that note, I want to kind of finish off and just get your feedback. I've lost Zella, but she sent me a message that she's struggling. I think she's got load shedding. Hey, the great load shedding. Kinshani, where are you? Are you still there or have you gone to your meeting?
I'm still there. I'm still waiting. They said up 12:05.
12:05. They're on the money, eh? So tell me, what do you think? Is there a few things that have come out here? I'm going to leave you with this slide. You can read it while you're talking to me.
All right.
Can you take some of these concepts and put them into your leadership training going forward now? What do you think?
Most definitely, I would. And I want to ask a question. I'm not sure whether it will sound as a question or as an analysis that I made.
Yes.
Why is that when most leaders are in leadership? Let's say you are my leader and I submit under you. Somewhere, somehow, I will have to do your job someday. But looking into how we're working together, even though you're not appointed exactly as my mentor, but looking into you giving me the skill or giving me information, some leaders tend to be hesitant into giving the skill to the next person. I don't know whether is the issue of thinking maybe they will take the job away from them,
Yes,
but
true.
that distracts a lot when it comes to growth from management, because the people that submit under them, they don't grow in what they do because mostly they don't even know what to do exactly, since the leader doesn't want to give out information.
That's true. That's true. And here's the slide that talks to that. For the best part, the way I'm not going to say, and there is science to show this, Kinsani, but there is, and this science can sometimes be a little biased, but for the most part, the science shows and research shows that managers do not communicate effectively. They do not share information. They struggle with delegation because they fear the competitive environment. So I have been managed. Let me tell you something. I managed people that eventually became my boss. And I never had a problem with that because my emotional intelligence, the level that I managed at, the leadership abilities that I had, were a lot more growth mindset, a lot more mature. I did not have this insecure feeling. Yes, it was hard. It wasn't always easy. You know what I'm saying? Okay, and it wasn't as a result of anything like employment equity or affirmative. That was not the case. It was an issue where sometimes I managed them so well that they just progressed beyond and went into other departments, and eventually they were higher in rank than me. I've got a few of those out there. I love that because the light must shine on other people as well. But for the best part, they have insecurities. They're weak managers. They're very bad communicators. Those insecurities can stifle you. If you are stuck in those environments, you've got to get out, because that leads to the toxicity inside your organization. It's a septic culture. I hope that answers your question or your statement. Well done. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. I'm glad that you were on board today because I'm going to watch you even more closely now on social media. Cool bean.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Anything from you, Jackie? Are you all right? Are you okay? Yeah, they're having problems with their...
Stuck quite a bit.
Yeah.
The people that we manage are a reflection of us.
Yes, I think I put that in here somewhere.
As leaders. Yeah, that's
that is correct.
You did. You had it on one of your slides.
I had it. Yeah, I had it there now. They are a reflection of us. somewhere over there. But anyway, yes, you're quite correct. There are. If you are a bad manager, you'll probably find that your people will be bad managers as well. So, and how I manage is a reflection of my, reflects. Well, I get what you're saying. It's a reflection of how they are. Very interesting.
So even if they're better than us, it just if we potential, and even if
100%, 100%, you're quite correct.
You've done well.
Awesome. Great, guys. That's our hour done.